Ba-dum-bum.
Turn down my volume.
Hello, gang. Is
Hey,
Lori just
guys.
standing there, dead air?
Happy Friday! We are here with Bob.
Hello.
Sorry we're late. I did warn
Yo.
everybody last week that due to holiday scheduling, we could be starting late, and tonight happens to be one of those nights. So, just want to say hi, happy Friday. Hope you can join us in the comments. We are here, and we are ready to take any comments, any questions, anybody needing help. Please let us know. We are here to help anybody in any way. We're going to wait to see a few people pop in before we start getting into our topic. Happy Friday. We have Christmas coming up. Hope everybody is getting things done, getting to be where they need to be. Kwanzaa's, I think, already started, didn't it?
I believe that's the day after Christmas.
Oh, Kwanzaa.
Maybe think of Hanukkah.
Hanukkah started, right?
Yes.
Hanukkah started.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Like whatever Bob just said. Happy. We took the grands to we took the grandchildren to see Santa Claus, not the real Santa Claus, but we're going, and the Grinch. They both freaked out and said no to the Grinch. They were like, nope, not doing the Grinch today. Jackson was so excited all day. I can't wait to see the Grinch. And she saw the Grinch and she was like, yeah, no, not going to happen. He's scary.
Santa Claus's nationality is South Polish.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was an interesting one. I'm glad I didn't pay to take her to see the Grinch. Thanks to Noel's Christmas tree, we got to see Santa and the Grinch, and free.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Free. Wow.
And we got to take our own photos, so
Wow.
that was awesome.
So Rough and Tumble Lane was afraid of Santa and the Grinch, right?
I think so.
Wow.
Yes.
Well, he's at that age, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, and he was still afraid of, he was still hesitant on Santa, even though I sat him down and Santa gave him the big bells. He was just like, no. But there was a blow up Santa, and he was like, look, and he was like so excited, and I'm like, but he's right next to you and he's live, and he's like, yeah, get me away from this man. Jackson was like, la 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 la, talking away, chewing his ear off, hugging him, like she couldn't get enough of Santa. And last year and this year was the first 2 years that she's liked Santa. Well, her first Christmas she was, because she was only a baby. She was born in September, so she was only a few months old. So she was asleep when we took her to see the first Santa Claus. So she was like, oh, fine. The next one, she was like, ah! But yeah, that's what we did tonight. And so it was fun. It's fun to watch them enjoying the Christmas spirit. The elves came, the nightmare elves came, and the other night they decided to do a zip line across the living room ceiling. They had little beads that they were zip lining on.
We go in this panic mode every night. Where to hide these stupid elves on the shelf?
At 1:30 in the morning, it's like, oh, shit.
That's what we're talking.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh shit! I forgot to move the elves.
Gotta run out.
Because
Living
every
room.
night they head to see Santa and let Santa know if the kids have been good or not. So
Who started this stupid elf on the shelf? I
don't
remember
know.
as a kid.
But you know what?
Oh, that-
Ka-ching, whoever it was. Now they have outfits you can buy that they can change them into.
Ah, okay, that's
So they have all of these
I like the
different
Snoop dolls.
things that you
Snoop on
can
the stoop.
buy. That you can do to so that it looks like they've been moving all night. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah, they're making lots. It's like the pet rock of
The pet rock of-
our
of Christmas.
our time. And now it's
yeah.
this damn
it's
elf.
the updated pet
Yeah.
rock.
So
my mood ring.
yeah,
Mood
at
ring.
one
Italian
thirty.
horn. I'm an Irish kid. I had an Italian horn. But yeah, I had to have one.
At 1:30 in the morning, and
I think I had one too.
yeah, you're
Everybody.
We all had one.
you're
Yeah, yeah.
asleep, and you're like, oh, okay, and you're just getting ready to hit that REM when it's like, boom, eyes open wide. I forgot to move the damn elf.
All them fads.
Yes, and the other night we went to bed early, and the elf moved, and I had gone into powder my nose, and I hear Jackson. She's like, I almost caught them, and she was so excited. I've never seen such excitement.
Wow.
She was so happy. She's like, I almost caught them. I had just finished moving them. And she would have
I'll
caught
freak
me.
her out. I'll put a magnet in one, go down the basement, and pull it across the floor.
Yeah.
I'll figure out to pick one up and carry it.
Yeah. So you're not allowed to
Take all
touch
the
them.
magic.
That's the thing. You're not allowed to touch them because if you touch them, they lose their magic.
Oh, okay. That's the thing. Okay.
So I know my niece is freaked because they came up one morning and here comes the dog with one in its mouth.
Nice.
So there's a whole ritual that you have to do to bring their magic back.
magic,
So
I got
You
you.
got
Okay.
people.
We
Yeah.
got people on here.
All
Larry,
righty,
we got
we got-
Larry. We got
Larry,
Stephanie.
all right.
staff, hey guys, sorry we're late,
We're
but
kind of
we're
sandbagging
here.
until we got a couple more viewers on. We're running a
Yes.
couple minutes late. We got the
Welcome.
wonderful and intelligent Mr. Bob Matthews next to me.
Yes, we are
It's good to
talking-
be here. It's been a while.
Yeah,
It's been,
it
last time I
has
was here,
been.
It was hot. We were roasting in the other
Yeah,
room
we're-
over there.
Yeah, and now
The-
we're
the
Yeah,
door
put it
open.
lightly. Yes, we are.
Yeah, yeah. It was still enjoyable.
Yes.
Beating up
The-
like
the-
we're going to the electric chair.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. The Parkers always their hospitality is excellent. They always provide me with unlimited cold root beer. So,
There you go.
Yeah, it's a good deal.
Yes.
Don't get no better than that. Yeah, no.
Doesn't get much
No,
better than that. Yeah,
no.
yeah. I'm easy. You know.
Atomic fireballs too.
Isn't that a song?
Yeah, yeah. Good one too.
Yeah.
So
What's new in the wide world of recovery and such?
yeah, well, tonight we were Pappy and Lori and I were kind of kicking around some ideas the other night. We were and
Go ahead.
Pappy mentioned this that he was reading about a new vaccine, a vaccine for fentanyl, which my ears perked up, and I thought, wow, I didn't hear about this, and I'm usually
This
up on
article
these
says like
things.
November 22nd, so it's pretty recent.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks ago.
November 14th it was. I'm sorry.
Oh,
but I don't know.
yeah, less than a month
But
ago.
yeah, I'm surprised we haven't heard more about it because
Yeah.
it could definitely be a game changer, for opiate for the opiate epidemic.
Oh, no
No
doubt.
doubt.
Yeah, this is really.
It takes a really wild angle at how it works. I mean, you want to tell them there. I kind of fascinated.
Yeah. Well, Poppy and I read the same article, so we just read an article on it. So we don't
We're experts now.
profess to be experts on this new
We're
vaccine.
internet experts.
Yeah. So
We're not doctors. We only play one.
We've been
That's
digging
right.
through the medical
play them on
annals.
Friday nights. Yeah. So.
Well, at least you're a clinician or
Well,
a
yeah, that's
counselor.
true. Yeah. Well, I mentioned it to a couple of colleagues, and they didn't know about it either, and they were.
See
they
that?
were
Just some fat
just as
truck driver
excited.
from the suburbs.
Yes.
The supplement.
and they
Hi,
were-
Mary. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. So, well, basically, the long and short of it is it's a vaccine that that has antibodies that will attack fentanyl, the fentanyl molecule, or fentanyl as it's entering the body, and it will not allow the fentanyl to enter the brain, and then it just flushed out of the body.
That's crazy.
And that's the basics of it right there.
But the interesting part was that it's just proprietary towards fentanyl. So you could still get surgeries and they could use painkillers like morphine.
Right.
And the morphine will work perfectly fine like it's supposed to. That this is just designed for the body that produces these antibodies, I think, whatever, that attack, the fentanyl, like you said, and don't allow it to be absorbed into the brain. I mean, this is fabulous, man. I hope it just goes all the way through. It's still in the lab stages. I mean, they said they're going to start human trials very shortly.
Yeah, they're still testing it on rats, but the rat trials have been very promising, and it's shown to do what it says, what it's intended to do, and that is to block fentanyl and the effects of it, and also it has minimal side effects according to this
Right.
article.
That's what they said. Yeah, they
The
have
rats.
nothing major. I mean, it sounds too good to be true. Say, I'm afraid to get too excited about it, but nonetheless, I mean, it's exciting. I mean,
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
this could be the game changer we need. Because
Yeah.
the United States, man, we're under siege. People don't realize how bad it is. I mean, especially people that aren't involved in the recovery world and all. I mean, they just see what they see,
Yeah.
but they don't realize how bad it is. How it's in the entire drug supply everywhere. I mean, these dealers are trying to get everybody to buy their product to get them hooked on their product by introducing the fentanyl in
It's-
their product. It's a deadly mix.
It's a competitive business out there. Yeah, well, we were chatting before we were live, and the statistic is still 150 deaths per day in the U.S. alone. 150 deaths per day due to some sort of opiate-like substance, including fentanyl, and that blows my mind. 150 a day, right? And
I mean,
it's.
ba-da-ba-da.
Yeah, and we still. I don't know. I know. I guess. I'm certain.
That's only 54,000, almost 55,000. It's actually more than that.
Per year.
'Cause
yeah.
I know-
Yeah, because I thought it was up around 70.
Yeah,
actually.
they had and that was a low ball like last year of 70,000. They
Right.
think it could be as high as 100,000.
Right.
There's been speculation. I mean, but there's such a cloud of secrecy around the numbers, and
Sure.
a lot of cities and towns don't want to sound like they have a bad problem there, so
They wanna
they
downplay,
underestimate
right.
things. They downplay the numbers and such, and it's it's a lot of underlying issues that go in. I mean, guy's heart exploded because he had too much, but it was a heart attack. Well, the heart attack brought on by,
Right.
Right,
by
exactly.
like
Yeah.
I have a question, and this was brought up to me tonight. When somebody is on Suboxone because of a opiate use, I mean, they can still get high if they use opiates, correct?
If they
It's,
use
it,
opiates,
it could become an overdose, correct?
with Suboxone. Okay, so Suboxone and methadone are both agonists, so they fill up the receptor in the brain. So basically, I mean, theoretically they can, but their cravings are going to be very low.
Low.
But theoretically, yes, they can.
But what if they change to meth?
Well, meth is a stimulant, a super stimulant.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty much a different class of drug. So if they switch to meth and then they use opiates or fentanyl, oh, they can definitely overdose.
But I'm just curious because, like, if you're taking Suboxone, so your cravings are down, is it, because I'm hearing a lot of people are switching over from heroin and fentanyl and going to methadone. And methadone seems to
Oh, to
not
methadone.
not methadone.
Crystal
I'm sorry,
methamphetamine?
methamphetamine.
Okay.
It seems to be. I've been noticing a higher group of people getting high on meth.
It's
Then-
increasing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was and just up until a few years ago, that was the meth epidemic. That's what I call it. It was big on the West Coast and the Midwest and, the South, the Southern United States, and it's only been big in the Northeast now. On this level, just for the last few years. So yeah, it's here and it's big now too. Meth, absolutely. The thing with methadone and Suboxone is that it will, if someone stops taking methadone and Suboxone, right, and their tolerance for opiates will still be very high. Right? So in other words, if they relapse after coming off of methadone or Suboxone, their tolerance is still pretty high. So therefore, they're still less likely to overdose. Now with naltrexone, which I'm a big supporter and fan of, the treatment of opiate abuse and recovery. The thing with naltrexone and Vivitrol, which is the same medication, right? Vivitrol is the injectable form of it, It's a shot in the butt with a big needle once a month, and naltrexone is the oral pill you take daily. People will opt for the needle, the shot, because of compliance issues, right, or adherence they call it now. So they'll people they don't have to worry about taking a pill. They don't have to have the motivation daily to take a pill.
Right. And a lot of recovery houses, if they're entering in a recovery house, their acceptance of Vivitrol versus medically assisted treatment, your Suboxone or your methadone. I know that that's changing today because of, laws and everything, but I know that they will opt for that more because they have to go to a doctor to have the injection of Vivitrol.
That's right. Yeah, all of these medications have to be prescribed by a doctor. Sure. Vivitrol, naltrexone, you can get a lot of primary care doctors now are prescribing it, which is really good. Psychiatrists as well, and of course treatment centers like Livingren, of course. So, but the thing with naltrexone though, that's starting to come out is that the tolerance for when people are on it for a while, the tolerance for opiates becomes very low as opposed to high with Suboxone and methadone and buprenorphine. So it becomes low. So what happens is if they relapse, overdose is more likely if they were using naltrexone than if they were on methadone or Suboxone. I still think naltrexone and Vivitrol are great medications.
Yes.
They're wonderful tools. And anecdotally, I can say, and professionally, that it's, I see a lot of success stories, and it's a great tool. So.
Yeah. I just didn't know, like for people that are in that relapse mode, that they're on medically assisted treatment, which is Suboxone or methadone, and they are switching over to meth, or relapsing on like heroin or methadone or
I think a lot of them.
fentanyl.
There's a lot of reasons for it. I believe one of them is the fear of the opiate supply. I mean, they're the fear of fentanyl being in it, so they're switching to another drug, switching over to the meth. But we know the meth is also
Is now
tainted with
being-
fentanyl, but
Yeah, adulterated.
and it's
with
cheaper than
fentanyl.
cocaine.
Right.
I mean, and the cocaine supply is tainted with fentanyl too now.
I mean,
Sure.
everything is.
But
Sure. Yeah.
and and like I
even the
said, if they,
marijuana, everything's.
It's all
But,
pressed together.
yeah.
it's a big change that we all notice. We hear it coming into our meetings and all. People's loved ones are switching over to meth, and the meth is so strong now too. It's much stronger than it ever was. And like you were saying, how it just raises your dopamine levels to levels that are like
Oh,
the
it's
same
amazing.
levels as schizophrenic and bipolar people have.
Like
The dopamine levels. I mean, it could
right, yeah.
cause
Because
psychotic moments.
it causes
just like with
psychosis.
them. I mean, I found that interesting.
Right.
How
Yeah.
We have
it just
a
releases-
comment from Mary Rose.
Copiate.
I don't know if I can comment, but my husband gets his Suboxone, pays on the phone, which breaks my heart because I know it works for so many. Hey Sue, and you have to be, you have your Suboxone, you have your methadone with your medications. If you have a doctor that the line wraps around the building and it's cash only, that's like a huge red flag that's probably not the best place to be getting your
or treatment or
medically
methadone.
assisted
Medically-
treatment.
Yeah, because you need follow up. You need
Right.
You need to be monitored. I mean, it's
Yeah.
that's a slippery slope there.
Sure, yeah, and I actually I worked in methadone maintenance for 13 years, 4 different clinics actually, and so treatment. What they're talking about is the necessity of treatment with it,
Right.
and psychosocial treatment. counseling and group therapy, individual
Right.
therapy,
Sure, that's got to be all
nursing
part of it.
services. That's all part of it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a
It
kind of an
I
inclusive
think it
service.
should be, and it has to be.
Right.
Sure,
And if they're
yeah.
if they're wrapped around the building and there's a lot of people out there spitting in other cups, they're just red flags. Like that's
yeah.
not the place you want to be. But also, again, and I always say it, without that additional counseling and support, how long is that going to work before you're getting high from it?
And even
you know?
medical monitoring. I mean, they don't know your blood pressure is and this and that. I mean,
That's
things
true
might have
too,
to be
yeah.
adjusted. I mean,
Yeah.
but my question, I always could, as far as methadone goes, is there any kind of protocol that brings an end game into it? I mean, like do they before they go to a taper or whatever? I mean, is there like a number, or it depends on how bad your addiction is? I mean, because I know people going like 25 years. It goes
Oh,
on
sure.
forever.
Yeah, yeah. I've
It's
known-
like,
I've
like
known some too.
when you come in, do they run it by? I would think maybe blah blah blah. The taper, maybe we might be able to do this in 5 years or 3 years or
Yeah. It's a good question. In my experience, it all depends on. There are a lot of factors involved. So there's a lot of variations between clinics and the treatment providers for methadone, and so it depends on the clinic or the treatment center, the counselor, and
who's
the
the
treatment
insurer?
team, the insurance. Yeah, the insurance too. Yeah, although insurance often is actually fairly generous in paying for
especially in the public
medication
realm,
assisted
public
treatment.
insurance.
Yeah, because
They
it's
seem to really gravitate
especially
towards-
public. Yeah, and I work mostly in Philadelphia. In methadone, but yes, that's usually a quick go-to for in terms of insurance companies and public health, methadone and medication-assisted treatment. But it is a lot less expensive than hospitalization, than residential treatment.
Right. And
over
and
time.
it sucks because it works for a lot of people. The people that like really put everything into it and they listen to the suggestions and they follow the tools
Oh, sure.
from the toolbox. It really helps a lot of people, but some people just aren't in it to win it. They're there
Yeah.
because of other reasons, whether
Yeah.
it's the courts, whether it's the families, whether it's your boss.
I mean, I don't like to say one over the other. Like, we try to stay neutral on everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I gotta honestly say, I always feel like the methadone is the quick fix, for lack of a better term. The quick fix situation where you get the fastest results.
Pardon the pun. Yeah.
And you stabilize, you're able to lead a somewhat normal life. I mean, it's like the easiest route for everybody. And the easiest isn't always the best.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just
That's-
like a
I
quick
think that's
fix,
fair
and
to
that's
say.
why 25 years you're still on methadone, which is it's bad for you. Methadone isn't good for you long term use. It gets in your
Right.
bones. It's very hard to purge from your system. I mean,
Yes. Yeah. It's
So-
And I think a lot of people as well, had gained their addiction from, pain management. Like that was, here's an opiate that will help your pain. Now you can't get that opiate medication anymore because you've been on it for so long and now you're needing more and more and more. So now they're like, okay, you have to go into treatment, but they still need the pain managed.
Sure,
So they're using the
absolutely.
methadone.
the methadone for pain management as well as opiate addiction.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
That's what
So, and I
happens.
mean, I see a
a
lot,
lot of people
that.
don't realize that it actually is a pain
Yeah.
Medication.
management
It's
drug. I mean,
developed
that's
for that, for
used
pain.
for other things.
Sure.
And that was
People
probably
don't realize that methadone is an opiate.
right, and it's
Yeah.
probably was introduced well before all the synthetic opiate.
Methadone been around since the 60s or 50s. Or,
1940s actually.
wow,
In,
how
Yeah.
about that?
in
Yeah,
Germany, I know there's a lot
Yeah.
of
yeah, that's
a
right.
lot
I
of,
did remember seeing a German.
Yeah.
a lot of
So I'm sure that
folklore
that's,
about its origin, but we won't go into that tonight. But but there's
Why not? My grandfather.
stop it.
but it was developed in Germany in the 1940s. That is a fact. But the first 1960s, that was when they had the first methadone clinics in New York City. on the Lower East Side actually, and then they quickly spread to a lot of the other big cities like Philadelphia.
Right.
Yeah.
I realize we've had several opiate epidemics over the years. I mean, over the centuries. I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sure.
You know, it used to be in everything. I mean, all your cough elixirs and everything.
Oh
everybody-
yeah, until the Sullivan Act of 1912.
Yeah, you had
right?
opiates.
Yeah,
You had
Yeah.
cannabis oils and like
yeah,
all
sure.
kinds of
It was in the
concoctions.
Sears catalogs.
Morphine.
And the,
Yeah.
you could buy
Yeah.
you could buy opiates,
Yeah.
buy morphine.
Sue Tansy says, any idea a good time to try moving away from Suboxone?
Whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
That's what every counselor will tell you. That's why most people just stay on the methadone forever, is because they just don't want to ever go down that bad route again. So they're just fine with what's going on, and they'll just live that way. I know plenty of guys that have been on Suboxone for,
Yeah,
years
same
upon
here.
years. I mean, they actually maintain it themselves. They cut the squares into 4 pieces, and they only take a quarter of the square every day, and they're completely fine with that.
Right. And because a lot of people have fear
Sure,
of that
sure.
withdrawal. They're fearing that pain and that suffering
Fear
and
of
the
the withdrawal, and
diarrhea
fear it
and
may
the
lead to a relapse.
vomiting and the chills and the sweats. Like and you like, oh well, that's the same as the flu, and yeah, it sucks, but man up. But you don't understand that opiates and such get into your bones. Like, it's more than body aches. It's harder than body aches, from my understanding of withdrawal.
Oh, it's very intense.
I've had both. It's not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Right,
and
right.
and
yeah.
it's like the flu by 10 times worse.
Yeah,
So
and understandably, there's a lot of fear for coming off of methadone or Suboxone for that reason. Methadone is definitely more, the withdrawal is more intense than Suboxone, and Suboxone's not a walk in the park either.
Right.
But I've known a lot of people who or a good number of people who did come off of methadone. They developed a plan to taper off over time, and sensibly. And I've known one thing I did notice, they were working recovery programs. Like, these are people like really into recovery, a lot of psychosocial support, and some of them, they've kind of, in a way, they seem to have aged out of the lifestyle in a way too.
Right.
They were late 30s, 40s, 50s, and they were. I guess that was a way to. But by that time, I think the taste for that lifestyle was just really, nil. By that time, but it was a long. The detox was long, and sometimes they go down and they go up again, and the doctor will bring them down a little bit, and so, but they're monitored constantly. So yeah, it's not easy to come off of.
Right.
But people do. Also, I just want to point out too, there are patients who who had been on methadone for a long time, and they had take homes. In other words,
Right.
because of their time of sobriety and progress and treatment in their lives, they qualify for take homes. In which case, they go with their lock boxes to the clinic, and they would, have jobs and families and all that. And in some cases, you never know. Well, most of the cases, you'd never know they were on methadone.
Right.
And they would lead really normal and productive lives and go to the clinic like maybe twice a month, for
Right.
monitoring and all that. So that was on the good end of things. Then it ran the gamut to people who were, just kind of going in there, not ready for recovery, and just wanted to feel good, which is understandable too. Various levels of motivation, and then there were the use of benzodiazepines was such a kind of a plague at methadone clinics too. The benzos, that cocktail with benzos and methadone was always problematic and tragic too, and a lot of times too.
Right. Because
A
it
lot of
takes
people died.
time before, it takes a lot of time actually before you get take home, isn't
A lot of time,
because you
absolutely,
have to
yes,
be
that's the
following the protocol of going in and doing the counseling and doing what's suggested
Absolutely.
for you.
These were the model patients.
Right.
Yeah,
These are
they
the
were
people
really-
that
they were
wanted
really-
it.
Yeah, and there were some.
Right.
Yeah.
And Eric says bottom line is the bottom line. You got to want it.
Absolutely.
Avoidance of your drug of choice is paramount to recovery. If you want to get high, no matter what you're on, you're going to get high.
Eric. That's a good. That's a good. A good statement for tonight, because actually we were also going to talk a little bit about abstinence models of treatment and recovery and what's known as harm reduction models as well too. And so medication assisted treatment is considered part of harm reduction. Even it's a medication, but it's considered harm reduction and under the harm reduction model. Right, but harm reduction takes many different forms, not just medication assisted treatment. Right, so for example, most treatment centers are based on an abstinence model. Right, Livengren is based on an abstinence model, and most treatment centers are, but there are some treatment centers, not many, and some practitioners who will treat people on more of a harm reduction model too. I think that the main thing is harm reduction. We all know it's not ideal, and I agree with Eric. I mean, my treatment philosophy personally is in line with what Eric said, and my where I work, Livengren, I'm totally for the abstinence model too, but I also have to acknowledge that the harm reduction model is growing out there.
Right.
For better or for worse, it is a thing we have to deal with. Right.
Well,
Yeah.
with the government, and this is my spin on it, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but they lost a lot of kickback when they stopped the opiate over prescribing. So a lot of money's going into the abstinent program. So now where are they getting that kickback money? They're going to go towards methadone, because then they're still getting, the government is still making something off of that.
Right.
They've
Sure.
lost that opiate kickback, and now here we're going to push methadone because it's cheaper than abstinent program,
Yeah.
and they still can get a kickback off
Yeah.
of it. And that's just my
When you were saying
thought process.
Yeah, and or when you say kickback, you mean from the pharmaceutical?
Pharmaceutical
Oh,
and-
so the opioids made by pharmaceutical.
Pharmaceuticals,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Right.
Now, when you speak of benzodiazepines being used in conjunction with methadone, would that be like Klonopin? Because you always hear Klonopin coming
Yeah.
up a lot, which is actually an anti-seizure drug. How does that come into play as being beneficial, to someone suffering from withdrawal or whatever with methadone? I mean, I hear it come up a lot. People get
Yeah.
thrown on Klonopin.
Yeah, Klonopin, or the benzodiazepines are the main ones now, or Xanax, Klonopin. I guess Valium's still around. I guess.
If I am still around, like
I know some.
everybody was on Valium in like the 70s.
Yeah,
Holy
Mother's
crap.
Little Helper.
Oh, my roller got caught my hair. You need a Valium.
Yeah.
All right, lady.
Right,
It's
exactly.
like-
I knew somebody. I knew some patients not until not that long ago who were actually on Valium, believe it or not. But methadone clinics don't prescribe benzodiazepines. In fact, it's very much against the rules.
Right.
So they're bought on the street, and they're taken with the methadone.
Right. But on
it's-
another side of it,
I know they're
when
being
people,
prescribed for something for people with.
but even
It just calms. It just calms you all down. It makes
Yeah.
the withdrawal a little
Tranquilizer.
smoother. It's all-
Right.
Yeah, sure.
But it also, some people still need to have that medication, but getting it legally and with under a doctor's prescription and guidance is what's really needed for that
absolutely.
type.
Sure,
Like,
yeah.
And that's what scares all the recovery houses. I mean, because it's people bring this stuff home and it can be shared in the recovery house or stolen or whatever,
Right.
as opposed to like a Vivitrol shot, which there's
Yeah.
less of a risk of that.
Right.
That's what happened to me. They had me on the rotten for my back from the first time I got clean because I couldn't even walk. And the next thing you know, I went down to Florida. No one told me that you gain a dependency on that too. The withdrawal with that was terrible.
Oh, on
And-
Neurontin.
On the run, and the only reason I had to get off of it was because
Yeah.
the fucking people in the house were stealing it. I didn't even know it was a thing that people were abusing.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
Alright, so
Yeah.
I just got off of it, and then it was another whole withdrawal I had to go through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's prescribed more carefully these days.
Yeah,
now,
and that
too,
was a
Neurontin.
recovery center that told me to go on that. And
Yeah.
I didn't. They didn't. I wasn't
Sure.
discussing
And
mentioning
Yeah.
gabapentin, that
Yeah.
was
Gabapentin used to be prescribed for everything and
That's true,
anything,
too.
and that became
Yeah.
a big.
I know
That
it did.
be-
That was
yeah.
like a light heroin withdrawal going off that shit. It
Yeah.
was. It was terrible.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's no joke. A
If
lot
I
of
did
these
that
meds
from the
coming
get-go, I
off.
just would have just dealt with not being able to walk good.
Right.
To be honest.
Yeah,
I
for a
didn't want
while.
to do that again.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's scary, but I mean, I follow a page where the one girl was a heroin addict, and she relapsed. Like I would just followed her story for the longest time, and she actually went on methadone to help her through that, and she wanted to change her life. She was ready to move on from all mind altering substances, and she actually did it under the control of a doctor, but it was taking too long. So she actually would go on and update us where she was, what she was feeling, how she was doing, and she was actually doing it faster than they were telling her.
Oh, really? Huh.
And she kept, I suggest you do not do this, but I have to get to this game plan by this date. So I have to do it. So, but it was really interesting to watch her go through that withdrawal from the methadone and that step down, that weaning
Yeah.
process. That was
Yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah, but at that point, I just wouldn't even done the methadone. I just would have dealt with the 4 or 5 days of just being abstinent, in my opinion. This is my opinion.
Yeah.
I would have put myself through
Yeah.
months of hell when I could have just.
Well, she was doing
Finally.
it. She was doing it, and she wasn't feeling all of that stuff, but she had, and it wasn't like somebody out there said you have to be off of it by this date. This was her thing. She was ready to move on.
She picked a time frame and
Right.
she was going to stick to it.
The
Right.
other thing is, people think that like the methadone and the Suboxone, like you show up to a center, you're like, I want to get clean. You've been doing heroin and opiates all the time. It's not that they just give it to you right then and there and you never feel withdrawal. You have to still withdrawal before you
That's
get
right.
that stuff.
That's right.
So that's the reason why people stay on it. They already went through
Yeah.
the hell through the week of just hell withdrawal, so then they can get back on the maintenance and then they feel better again. Well, then you gotta go through all it again. If
Right.
I was that person,
Right.
I'd be like, well, I'm not going through all that again. I'm fine right now. Screw it. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
stay on this shit. till it's
Yeah,
done.
that's an
Why
interesting.
don't we go through that again?
Right. So in other words, so you're getting off of street drugs, heroin, fentanyl, and you go to a clinic.
Yeah, you still
right?
go through the withdrawal.
You're
before
still
you
going
get
to
the
go through the
medicine.
withdrawal, yeah, right,
So at
before
that
you get
point,
the
then
medicine,
just
yeah.
fucking don't take the medicine. That's just my opinion on it. They already went through the hell.
You're already
Take
going
the
through, so
medicine.
you might as well stick
Right.
out that withdrawal
Taking this government
for a while.
and that's,
government supplied
like-
heroin. That's all I'm gonna take now.
And that's like when our loved ones are going through that, it's like, okay, I know it feels like hell. I know you're going through a terrible pain. I know that you're struggling, but it's temporary. Like, this is a temporary
Sure.
situation. But, once the brain starts kicking in and telling you other
Yeah.
things, then
That's a good point, Lori, because well, first, a lot of people who get on methadone in most cases, not all, but most cases, there were multiple attempts at sobriety without methadone
Right,
or
right. That's what I
Suboxone.
find. I mean,
It's not
people
usually
would-
the first thing.
No, it's usually not the
have
first
already
thing.
tried the
it's like a
abstinence
last
route
resort
before.
for a lot of people. They tried everything numerous times. I mean,
Yes, exactly. Richie, you were saying something?
No, I was saying like every person I know that's on a maintenance program, that wasn't the first decision. Like they've
Right.
already been a few times
Yeah,
through the trials of doing it the 12-step way. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And they're completely comfortable with the way that they are now. Like,
yeah,
what
and
they're doing.
right. So by the time they get there to the clinic again, they've had multiple attempts and they're beaten down and they're discouraged. Their families are discouraged, and they just get on it, right? And then, like Lori's saying, addiction, the obsession and compulsion is so strong, right? And then the anxiety as well. It's all part of it too. There's the physical part, which we're talking about, which is which is very serious too. But the mental part is really very very important to consider too, right? Because we have patients and outpatients who are physically sober, right? And now again, it takes the brain and body a while to heal, up to 2 years in some cases to fully heal, right? That doesn't mean they're going to go through 2 years of misery, but they get better, but they're still vulnerable though, and that's the thing. They're even the patients I work with, an outpatient, they look great if you saw them in Wawa or out in the street or in Walmart or whatever.
Please no brand names.
They're not paying us.
Oh, actually, we have to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Golden Corral.
Golden Corral.
Yeah, thank you, Golden Corral, as always. Yes, and Pappy and I are actually allowed back in there.
We've been allowed in after the big famous
the big, yeah. It'll be 2
scuffle.
years.
High chair.
The high chair.
Yeah.
Oh no, it'll be a year in
year.
January.
January, yeah.
We had to replace some. We had to pay restitution for was it
some
3
high
damaged
chairs.
high chairs?
Yeah, I think it was 3 damaged tight chairs.
Yeah.
Mary
so-
Rose says GABA is horrible. I thought it was safe, and I took one and thought I was going to go run through the wall. And I have to say,
Yeah,
when
the
I was having issues with, they were trying to get my pain management under control. Gabapentin was horrible. Absolutely horrible.
I didn't feel a single thing. It just helped me walk, and I was on it for I'm over a
Can
year.
you get rid of
For a
them?
year?
But the gabapentin was terrible. I was just
What was it about it that you didn't like?
well, I'm very sensitive to medication, so the way it made me feel, I just like racing and paranoid, and it was horrible. I had such anxiety from it,
Oh wow.
and I was just like, oh no, I can't take this. So they had to, it took a while for them to even, get something that I could even handle, because I'm very sensitive to
Oh,
medication.
Okay. Gotcha. Right.
So
So the side effects were just outweighed the
me and
the
side
benefits.
effects. Oh my gosh, it's
She
just
could even take Wellbutrin when she was trying to quit smoking. It was like the side effects were too much for her.
yeah. It was. I'm
yeah,
I'm
you're sensitive.
terrible with medication. Eric says people need to be educated before they start on a MAT program.
Absolutely.
They really do.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, on anything, getting ready to go into treatment or whatever, look at what you're looking for in your treatment, because
Yeah, and sometimes I think they're kind of rushed through it a little bit. They don't give them all the pros and cons, and
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of holes in everything. I mean, that's just
Right.
I mean, like me on the gabapentin. They did not
Yeah.
once was it mentioned that I'm going to form a dependency on it.
Right.
right.
And that was from a treatment center. It's like
Yeah.
if I knew that, I wouldn't even
Yeah.
have done it.
Sure. There's a
That's
lot of
like me
risk. Yeah. There are a lot of.
I don't take anything. I'm terrified. I don't never want to go on that road again.
Yeah.
I don't take freaking Kaufman. I don't take anything. I'll just
Yeah.
I don't honestly. The only thing I
'Cause-
take is Motrin. That's it.
Right. And I
don't really wanna
remember,
take it.
You're like me. Yeah.
I remember when
Yeah.
he came
and
home,
he suffers from migraines and all too. So he's kind of limited now. I mean,
Yeah.
he's had them since he was a child. I mean,
4 years
I
old.
just deal with it now. I don't want to take anything. I do not want to go down that road again. I don't
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Now he when he came home from treatment, I'll never forget, he's like, "Oh, here mom," and it's like blister packs of all this medic. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's stupid. I
"Oh
was
my
like,
god,
I don't need all
like
that shit.
this is insane." Like
Yeah, I was
and
like, I don't need all this shit.
I was like, "Oh," but I hear that like in our parent group, I hear that when they're coming home, like, are they supposed to be on all this medication? But we have to remember that they're having a problem with sleeping. And
almost always usually. Yep.
And it's a matter of making sure that you're following the prescription per order, not just
Yeah, that's a good point, Lori. I mean, look, there's a risk in everything in life, right? Every treatment has a risk. Even if you go for say a colonoscopy, there's a risk involved in that procedure. Actually, most people do okay with it, but
What are some of the side effects?
Shush.
but
Stop.
I just
Stop.
pulled that just came to mind.
Stop.
But there's
Pull that out of your
but there,
out of your hat.
there's always every medical treatment has a medication, a
Right.
treatment, a procedure. There's always a risk.
Every time you go under anesthesia, is a,
Anesthesia has a
We
risk too.
have
Sure,
a
yeah.
caller.
Oh, is that Larry? By any chance?
No.
We'll find out.
No, it's our other man.
I paid Larry
Clicked on the
20.
link. He's not even in the show anymore.
Oh, okay.
Hello,
Hello,
there.
caller.
Hello,
Paid him
caller.
25
How are
bucks.
you?
Where's
Good.
that?
How are you guys? Very
No-
interesting show.
No tin can tonight. Good for you.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll turn
It's
you
funny
on.
that the diversity of the difference of how drugs affect people.
Yes.
You know, person A can go through a medically assisted treatment program with no problem and get off it if they want.
Mm-hmm.
Person B is stuck on it for. I got a guy that I know that I work with that's in the program. He's probably 15 years on methadone.
Mm-hmm.
But he does,
Yeah.
he's a lawyer, and he's very prosperous and a great guy.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, everybody's different.
Yes.
All these
It's a good
programs, you know, they're. And as far as what you're saying about taking gabapentin, and that can affect one person the same way, and then the other person doesn't even do anything for
That's
them.
true too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was some crazy stuff. And then they had to wean me off of it. I'm like, oh my gosh, just give me something that will help the pain and not mess with me. Like most of
Yeah.
my medic.
Metabolizes different for sure. I mean,
Sure.
like, I remember I had a wisdom tooth pulled. They gave me Vicodin. I got deathly ill from it. I couldn't even take no more.
Wow.
I took like one. It tore my stomach up so bad. I was like, oh my god.
And that's how it.
That's what gabapentin did to me.
Yeah.
And that it did to me. Like most of that medication, I get deathly ill. Like there is no fun in it for me. I'm like, I do not want to take it. And and I've gone through the withdrawal, but I wasn't on it long enough to like really be into withdrawal as somebody that would be taken it illegally, and like I
Yeah.
took it as prescribed, and
Sure.
that was
A
enough
lot
for
of
me.
us, it has to come down to a mental choice too.
Right.
It really does, believe it or not. I mean, you psych yourself out of it, and you psych yourself into it.
Yep. Exactly. And
Yeah.
and how are you, caller? It's been a while since we spoke with
Yeah, I
you.
haven't called in a minute. So
I know
figured
you
I'd
haven't.
Give it a shot.
Yes, and you haven't been coming in for a minute either. But I think
Yeah, have I been here every week?
well, in the last 3 weeks, yes. But before that, you were taking a hiatus from us,
Hiatus.
Well, yeah.
and
Well,
then
it
I
wasn't on
busted your
purpose.
chops on it.
So what was your last experience with a colonoscopy? Was it pleasant, unpleasant?
I met him in.
No, not Colonel.
That's a colonoscopy.
Or like Colin Powell. That's Colin. Oh, sorry, Colin.
Oh,
Mr. Colonoscopy.
I'd like to have a name.
yeah, that's what. Welcome to age 60. Guess what you get, sir? Can I go back to 58?
Should we date it first?
Yeah, right.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. People respond to different medications, even addictive drugs. People metabolize differently or have different experiences.
Oh, I'm one of them.
The other night we were talking about in our group Wednesday we were talking about marijuana, a hot topic of always.
How did I make it?
Yeah,
That's one of my
Pappy,
tipping
he's
points.
a resident
Yeah.
expert. We were talking about up to 10% of the population has a very negative reaction to marijuana, right?
Yeah.
And and yeah, so it's even with.
But if
with
you'd have
all
told me that in
substances.
1979, I'd have hit you.
It's me. I was a person that couldn't handle the effects of marijuana. I mean, I loved the alcohol and everything. I worked in the nightclub scene, and everybody was smoking all around me. But I just didn't like the feeling. It made me
I grew into
sick in
not
the
liking
stomach.
it.
It made me feel out of control. Whereas,
Yep.
like, you're liquored up, you're out of control, but you don't feel out of
You don't
control.
feel it.
You know,
Yeah,
like,
I hear what
it's
you're
like
saying,
everything,
yeah.
but like, man, I'm in the
hear what
car.
you're
I'm paranoid. I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah.
I think it's a cop like 12 blocks ahead there. Like, it was a horrible, unenjoyable experience for me. I rarely ever. I'd be in a car with other people smoking. I'd be higher than they were, and I wasn't even smoking. You know, I'm serious. It just really,
You got
and I'm a
paranoid on the
beefy guy,
second
but
on
just
smoke.
really, boom. I don't know. It's just something in the cannabinoids that just my body just didn't like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Scared to
Yeah,
death. Somebody will
every-
slip me one of them gummies, and I'll probably jump out a window. It's happening to people. They're like, they're experimenting with these gummies and all. These things are so strong. These people are checking themselves in emergency.
Oh, a lot of bad reactions to the
Yeah.
gummies.
So
Tell
they,
me
they,
about
they
that
think
today.
they don't know. They think they don't know
Yes.
what it is. They never felt like this before. They're like
Yes, it's
panic attacks.
That was like
high
back-
school students
that
too
was-
right now.
That was like back in my days when the dabs were big. I had a whole
Oh,
rig
yeah.
for it, and people were like, "I want to try." I was like, "Dude, no, please, like, I don't, like, no, I don't." And then they would try it, and it would be just a terrible, frightening experience. Like they'd be passing out and shit, and it's strong.
There's the hallucinogens
Oh,
you're talking about.
Once again, everybody's different.
Concentrated
You
weed
know, it was
with
just
dabs.
like
Oh,
people
yeah,
back
yeah,
in the
yeah.
days when they
Whatever they
tested
call
LSD on people.
Yeah.
But I mean, like,
Some of them were
strong.
fine, and the other ones climbing the damn walls.
Yep.
That's
I
true,
I
yeah.
seen. I saw a
What,
guy
what
on.
makes the difference?
I saw a guy on
different
PCP
breed.
fighting this 10-foot guy that wasn't there.
Yeah,
Beating
Somebody
the
slip
shit out of
you
him.
know.
Somebody slipped me a Mickey one time through a Viagra in my drink. I was knocking over vases and it was terrible. I didn't know what the hell was wrong with it.
That was a stiff drink. Wasn't
That
it?
was a stiff
But
drink.
But I'm pumped.
We make sure he doesn't take one before we enter this little studio. This
yeah,
Yeah.
like
This
microphones
cramped space
and
here,
knocked that
yeah,
away.
yeah.
Now,
But I
now
can't
did
even, I
you?
can't even imagine what it being any stronger than it was when I was still using. I mean, it was outrageously strong then, and now it's
Yeah.
even stronger
It's
now.
even
I don't
stronger
know
They,
that.
they,
Yeah.
they grow it for the simple purpose, then they concentrate it, they harvest
Right.
the THC crystals and
Right.
compound it. It's like,
And
you know,
that's
and everybody says, that's what that pissed me off. And I really didn't touch on it the other night. I'm not against medical marijuana.
not at all.
It has great practicality
Benefits.
in a medical situation, but there's too many recreational people hide behind that medical moniker.
Sure.
Pushing the agenda,
Oh, yeah.
push the agenda. And they ain't kidding me.
They
You know,
look
and
at-
like-
yeah, exactly.
And like these people are just losing their shit, Eric, with marijuana now. We got people coming into our meetings, their loved ones, their children are having psychotic moments, they're having mental breakdowns, and it's already proven now that people are developing dependencies on THC now due to the strength of this marijuana.
Strength of it, yeah.
Well,
like
even-
people would fight you tooth and nail 2-3 years ago. That's ridiculous. It's all that bullshit, man. These people are developing dependencies, and it's already been.
treatment centers are accepting marijuana.
It's
Yeah,
already been
really?
proven.
it's a
Yes.
thing now. Yeah.
But when I was in
No
Liverpool, there was a
kidding. Boy, that I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
treatment centers are now treating
increasingly
marijuana
common. Yep.
It wasn't
users.
until halfway through his time there that he opened up.
So are
that's
we
what he was
gonna
in
see
there for.
MA?
And they made
He was
fun of him.
embarrassed.
I'm-
Well, I'm
Oh.
sure, right?
He was completely
I'm
embarrassed.
telling you,
could see that.
it's getting
GA
worse.
Ganja Anonymous.
Yes, it's getting worse, and
I know it's a hell of a lot stronger. It has to be now. From
Oh, yeah,
when
no
I was
doubt.
using it. I know
and you know they
it's
say, oh,
really
it's all
strong.
natural. Well, it stopped being all natural back when it was whatever Hawaiian Gold or whatever it was back
Hawaiian
in
Panama
Gold.
Red.
Cheech and
Red,
Chong
yeah.
days.
You're
whatever
mixing,
it
you're mixing
was.
your stuff together now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
Acapulco
they're
Gold.
Showing our age.
Oh yeah, Hawaiian. There was a Hawaiian.
Hawaiian something.
There was a
I'm
Hawaiian
out of the
something.
loop now, but they have like a marijuana pill. It's like whatever it's
Marinol.
called.
Marinol.
Isn't that like pure
Marinol.
THC generally?
Yeah, Marinol is used medically. It's made for medicinal treatment
Oh.
of
Parkinson's, it's
yeah.
heart problem.
yeah, neurological issues or Parkinson's.
Yeah, but it's not synthetic. It's actually the THC, isn't it? Or is it a synthetic? I don't know.
Marinol it has actual marijuana
That's what I
pressed
thought,
into
okay.
a pill.
That's what I
Yes,
thought,
yeah, Marinol it's called. Yeah, but back to the gummies though. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's THC.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, I don't see it prescribed a lot these days, but it's strictly medical settings. With the gummies, though, a lot of high school students are now having really bad adverse reactions in school because they're gummies. They're nobody they're you can't smell them. And,
Right.
And they can
Right.
pop them in.
Because boy, oh boy, the pot today stinks to high heavens.
Oh
now.
my God, it's
It's
terrible.
the stuff-
Driving in front of you. with
Yeah,
the
you
windows
can. You
up.
smell people in the car in front of you, like walk by people more like,
Yeah,
good
yeah.
God, you smell, they
From
smell like a skunk.
Yeah.
It's
does-
horrible.
does
It's so
smell like a
strong
skunk,
and accurate. Accurate,
Yeah.
there's a good name. You don't get to use that
Wow,
word a lot.
yeah. How often do you get to use
You
acrid?
hardly ever get to use that word. I'm
Yeah,
gonna start
yeah.
using it more.
Yeah. We're gonna run a little
Never
over.
get
Is
away
that
with
good?
smoking that.
Okay. You don't have anybody coming on? Maui Wowie.
All that means.
I don't even think that was a real thing.
What?
We thought it was.
Yeah.
Remember,
Yeah.
there was Colombian gold.
Colombian
That
gold.
was
That's what it
Colombian
was.
gold,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Acapulco gold,
no, it wasn't. It was Colombian
Panama
gold.
Red.
Panama red,
They're two different ones.
Hawaiian.
Yeah,
Right,
it was.
thick.
It's crazy, and that was the good stuff back then. Like
Then you had your dust. Remember angel dust? Don't forget
yeah.
angel dust.
Yeah.
Oh, PCP is still around.
Spearmint leaves and embalming fluid.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's still
Things that,
around.
that
Yeah,
went
Lori
through.
was telling me about that last week. How
What do they call
that
it wet now?
PCP
Is
shit's
it?
coming
Wet,
back.
yeah,
Yeah.
wet they call it. Wet.
Yeah.
That's a hell of an
yeah,
experience.
it's crazy. It's I don't know. It just
I'm
blows
glad I'm
my
not
mind.
on the streets anymore.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's big around here too. Wet. That's
Now,
Well, Larry's
Now-
back from his hiatus.
yeah. Now
Larry?
where
Okay.
He took a U-turn.
when you went through your recovery, were you a one and doneer or were you a revolving
Well, I
door?
got educated on it.
Revolving
Well, I was one and
What
done
did
with
I
the
do?
alcohol, but
Clicked up
after
by
I
accident
broke
or
my
something
back
and
and
took
got
him over
addicted to
there.
opiates,
Swear.
that's when
I don't
they
know.
gave me the option. You want to just go on a Suboxone program, and I was like, no. I said, I'm not going on anything. I'm done with this. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
So it's
Good for
mental.
you.
it's a lot to do with your mind.
Oh,
It really
absolutely.
is. It's what you want to make up and what you want to do.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. Managing the anxiety of whatever, withdrawal
Yeah.
symptoms you're going to feel and all that. And also one's value system, too, which we don't really talk a lot about in recovery, really. But valuing recovery or sobriety or health or
Right.
being at our best, right? All recovery, those are all recovery values. And, yeah, that's a big part of it, too.
Yeah, you know what interests me is how opiate use has become so mainstream and so widely acceptable. I remember in my youth, my days when I was selling my wild oats, your heroin users were like a subculture.
Right.
They were
they,
the stuff.
they were the
underfoot.
hardcore people. They
Hardcore,
kept to
yeah.
themselves. I mean, they didn't share their addiction or anything about it. I mean, you knew who some of them were, but they were like. They were the real McCoy, man. That was the hardcore
Yeah,
stuff.
we
It was
were always
taboo.
like, well, we're not that bad.
Yeah, right. Heroin's like taboo, which today, I mean,
Yes,
with the overprescription of opioids and all, and so many people gravitating over to heroin, it's so much more socially acceptable. I mean, we're like back in our day, whoa, yeah, stay away
Yeah,
from
it's
him,
become
man.
more normalized. That's
Yeah,
such
it's
a good
so
point.
normalized.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very
So,
normalized.
so what's
Yeah.
taboo
All
anymore?
I know
Nothing.
Specifically for me, had I gravitated, I'd have gravitated underground. That's where it'd have put me 6 foot under. There's no doubt in my mind about it.
I mean,
Yeah.
think about the musical
Yeah.
artists back in the day. They didn't openly talk about them using heroin.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
it was
Right.
Rare.
like look at Eric Clapton. He wasn't talking about
No,
it. But now
no.
look at these artists now to where they flaunt it as
They
if
flaunt
it
it,
is
yeah.
something very cool to do, and they're
Yeah,
very
that's a
open
good point.
and like a positive factor about it in the music
Right.
industry now.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
point.
Like you didn't see Elvis out there like talking about it. Like
No,
oh, you know
no,
what I
it
mean?
was
Like,
hush hush.
you know,
Yeah,
but-
yeah. It was
But
more.
look at it now.
Yeah.
These artists, it's
part of the
acceptable,
popular
and
culture.
it's almost like they're advertising it.
Oh, by the way,
Glamorizing
Yeah.
it.
is for 25 years, and you still like my music, so.
Yeah, and you know what? And it's awesome
Thank you, thank
to
you. Thank you very
see
much.
so many people being open about it, because it's helping so many people find their way to the rooms and finding their way to treatment and finding, a better life for themselves.
Well, I agree. Being open discussion about this is great. I think Richie was talking about them glamorizing it.
Right.
I'm
That
talking
kind
about
of
glamorizing
that
it.
kind of openness. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I every morning I go into work, I got to clean up the works out front of my store.
Really?
I mean, they're out there
Wow.
because they closed down the homeless shelter by me. So every morning
Oh.
I do it all the time. All the guys are like, "It's works." I got to throw the works out.
Wow.
I see the one guy out there once in a while. I just ask him politely. I said, "Listen, can you just take your business to the back side of the building, please, not on my front
Mm-hmm.
door?" I mean, when I was younger, I don't remember. Even when I was using them, when I'm walking around, I didn't see empty bags and shit in the Wawa parking lot.
No.
I see it every
That's,
day.
a new
now.
thing.
that's
Everywhere.
all you
Everywhere
see.
I
Yeah,
go, I
it's
see-
everywhere
I see-
now.
I delivered to the
see
mall the
it
other day.
all over the place. Doesn't matter where I'm at.
The
I was
little
at
bags.
J.C. Penney that day
Yeah.
delivering up at
Wherever
Ox
we
Valley
go.
Mall. I got out of my truck. There's works right on the ground. I
Yeah,
delivered.
works at JC. Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
you didn't,
something.
when I was
everywhere.
using, you didn't see it. Even
Right.
all of us using, I mean, because it's a culture. So I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, I know
Yeah.
everyone is using the area. It
And I
was-
always love when you see that or you post that on social media. Somebody, well, how do you know it wasn't a diabetic?
Yeah.
Diabetics ain't throwing their goddamn syringes around when they use it. They're a little bit
Right,
more
right, right.
responsible. How do you know it was a drug use? It
Now,
wasn't
I'm
a
not saying
diabetic.
that using heroin was responsible. When I was still using though, we were all very serious about breaking the points off and disposing of the stuff.
You
properly.
guys
Cleaning
had
up
you had
shit, yeah.
boundaries.
And it was
Yeah.
there were, like everyone actually. When I was still using, most people were still kind of practicing. I want to say using safely, but at least like keeping and cleaning up after ourselves.
There was a
you know what I mean?
code. There was a
Like a
code.
But now I watch people; they're just throwing this shit out the window. I mean,
Yeah.
this shit's all over the
Like a
ground everywhere
Kleenex.
I go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sad. It's sad where we're going with this today, because
Yeah.
and
There's
even
no honor amongst drug
No.
users.
and even Kensington, like Kensington
No.
is, when we were doing outreach, don't wear open-toed shoes, don't wear
Oh, sure.
flip-flops, make sure you're wearing,
Look, I wear these big
Poked.
these boots. I
Yeah,
stepped
you
in an open sewer grate, man. It went down onto my knees. So I don't know how I didn't get stuck. I'm like,
That's funny.
Jesus God! What the,
a good
I
thing
think
you
there
were
was so
wearing
much shit.
those.
I couldn't tell there wasn't a grate on it under
Yep.
one of the tunnels.
It's a good thing you're wearing those. My
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah.
I was just waiting to feel a stick. I'm like, thank God, Jesus.
But the same people know what this stuff is when they see it. They just ignore it, and people are terrified of it.
right.
So like even when I work, it terrifies them. They see me pick the shit up, I break the point off, and I throw it in the trash. It
Yeah.
freaks them out.
Yeah.
It freaks
Oh
people
yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Well, people don't want to even touch them.
Well, I
mean,
guess
it's- yeah.
I guess that's good.
And
people are freaked
Stacy,
out.
we
I
don't-
break the points off. I throw them in a soda bottle. I would look for a nice heavy.
Yeah,
plastic
I
bottle.
don't, they
Yeah,
don't have
that's
the
what I
caps
did
on them.
too.
So
Yeah,
they
I
would, like,
just throw
sit
'em in a
out there,
bottle. I don't
so
break the
said,
points.
break
I
the
like-
snake, break the
And
break the tip off
Stacy,
and
here
throw
we
it.
don't have any judgment on anybody's path of recovery. I
Yeah, we
I
we
say
stay neutral
whatever-
pretty much.
whatever keeps you alive and off of the streets getting things that are deadly, that's the way to go. And
Everybody's journey is
You know,
different, man.
do I say a 12-step program is probably the best program? I myself do, but that doesn't mean I'm not for anybody on methadone. I know a lot of people on methadone. I know a lot of people on Suboxone that are doing great. I know some people on marijuana that are doing great, not going down to the Ave to get illegal drugs and to possibly
Right.
die from them. So if you have to do something and that program to keep yourself alive, then that's what you do.
Do it.
As long as you're not abusing it, then more power to you. Stay alive and stay part of the community. You
I
can
wasn't
work-
able to fall under the as prescribed banner
right,
Yeah.
ever.
right,
So I knew what I had to
Sure.
do.
Yeah.
exactly,
Sure. You know yourself. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it is like today is very scary out there because when you have the rescue unit coming and Narcaning you, it's not taking a Narcan. It's not taking 2 doses. It's one up each nostrils. It's taking six
Like 6,
doses to even get you
And-
to
and-
to
Stabilize.
that breathing
And
that
people who don't even dabble in opioids, I mean, I brought it before, a bunch of comedians on tour somewhere, they went out and bought some cocaine. Two of them died, one ended up in a coma, not even thinking, and they're not prepared. They don't have Narcan or nothing because they're not opiate users.
right.
It is Russian
Two
roulette, like
acquaintances.
she put down there. I mean, using now is like Russian roulette.
Yeah.
I think like years ago, I mean, they would cut it with something benign like a baby laxative or talcum powder, or
Right.
Yeah.
Now they
now they
put
cut it with
fentanyl. in
fentanyl,
it.
which is, let's face it, these people ain't exactly compounding pharmacists out there. They're not they're not real accurate on their
Yeah,
pharmacology.
Yeah,
Right.
no, they're
You
they're,
need a test,
A
moron.
little this, I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
a little
Right.
more, a
yeah,
little
they're
more.
not they're not measured cooks.
Right.
You know, they're
Yeah.
but well
If
yeah.
the test moron drops, I'm not doing it.
Right.
Right, yeah.
You know.
They're not. Their methodology isn't crisp, but
Right.
but yeah. We're not. Speaking for myself, and I know.
Yeah, we're
I
not-
know
we're
the
not
Parkers
knocking
very
that.
well.
Don't get us
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah. We don't. We're very big. We're big fans of
We
that.
approve whatever method you choose for your recovery.
Oh,
We're in on it.
absolutely. Yeah, I
We
hope
make
we
that
didn't-
clear all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Harm
hope we-
reduction
We don't recommend
is,
one over the other and all, but we are going to tell you some of the grim side effects of things. We're not going to sugarcoat everything.
Everything has a price, and
Right,
everything has a
right.
cost.
So we're going to bring that up. So by us bringing up, the side
Well, that's
effects
why I
and
got
stuff on
educated
certain,
first.
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
mean we're against that. We're just presenting
Yeah.
the facts.
Right.
Yeah. Hope we didn't come off as
We don't want to come off as being anti-Matt. I mean, not
right,
by no means.
anti-Matt. No, not at all. We're all very excited about it and the promise of it as a tool. And
And
I
it's
guess
keeping people alive.
yeah, exactly. And like any tool, I think we said this earlier. Any tool is as good as the person using it. Right?
Exactly.
And it, and if you use it properly and with the best intentions, and it could be very, very useful. And, but good tools can also be
But it doesn't
abused
hurt
too.
to consider an end game either.
Right.
Oh,
I
absolutely,
mean, I'm
sure.
just going to do it forever because it works for me. I mean, that's fine, and it may, but too many people aren't even coached about an end game. They just
Right.
let it go on forever.
It should be part of the conversation of
It
truth.
should be. It should
Absolutely.
be.
Right
It
from the
should,
get-go, right?
it should be an
after.
option. It
Absolutely.
should be
Yep.
presented to you.
Absolutely, sure.
Yes.
Like, oh, you're okay.
It's
Like
hard
this.
to-
Just take that for the rest of your life.
Yeah, because quite frankly, you're putting medication in your system, and I don't care who you are, whether you're using it illegally, or you're following the guidelines from the doctor. This stuff is affecting your organs. It's attacking your
liver's
kidneys,
processing
it's
it, your
attacking
kidneys
your
are processing all
pancreas,
this.
all of
Sure.
it.
If you could, save yourself from some of that down the road, I mean, it's all for the better. I mean, it's like more people die from alcoholism here than anything. But you know what it is? It takes so long to kill you.
Yeah.
Alcohol,
Right.
you know what I mean? So
The
people
slow
don't
death.
realize that. I mean, oh yeah, he died of the heart failure, or he had a swollen liver, or it's a pancreatitis. I mean, these are all the results of like years and years of alcoholism, but you never
Yeah.
hear that end.
It's only a quick death in an accident or
Exactly.
a car accident
Right.
or something.
Or
but-
fentanyl.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I'm talking about alcohol,
Right.
but alcohol, yeah, like Pappy's saying, it's still
Right,
the
it takes a
number
long
one,
time. It's a long.
still the number one killer among the substances, which says a lot, being that fentanyl kills so many people too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's so fast, and
yeah,
I mean, my father, he died young. He died young from the abuse he put to his body, his alcohol. He was an alcoholic for a very long time, and then got into the drugs. And it's not pretty. And when they back then, they look at the age, and I don't even think they considered like him being on drugs, maybe alcohol, but
oh right, yeah, it was kind of against the grain for his being
for his
a little
age
bit
group,
older,
yeah.
and his demographic,
And now today
yeah,
it's what, 30 and up, like
yeah.
that is
And people
30 and up, what? The
starting.
median age for
for addiction to opiates.
opiates.
Because
30 and
you're-
up. What is that? People are starting younger. See, people are starting younger and younger in addiction, which that just puts more stress on your organs, and they're dying younger. just naturally. I mean, you know,
Yeah, and by the way, the life expectancy, the U.S. life expectancy was
dropped.
dropping before COVID. By the way, I just want to point out it was. A lot of people say it's just because COVID definitely didn't help. I know that's a whole other discussion, and there are a lot of negative
that's one
stuff
for
there.
another night.
But yeah, no, for another night. But even before before COVID, there was the U.S. life expectancy was going down, probably mostly because of these overdoses.
oh, definitely, yeah.
And what they call the diseases of despair, right? Sociologists and psychologists call them the diseases of despair: addiction, overdose, and suicide.
Suicide,
right?
yeah. Suicide is.
But especially in young people, like, you know, like 16 to 25. I mean, it's the leading killer.
Yeah.
Of the young people that age, I mean, more than anything else, than violence, it's overdose. I mean, 'cause, you know, you're not supposed to have organ failure at that age and this and that. I mean, you're the prime of your life. And, you know,
When I first started getting my education, there wasn't a lot of women going into treatment. It was more men that were going, like
good
7
point.
years ago.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
doing, and they said because of the shame that they were going through, because of some of the things that they were doing to get their drugs.
Right.
So a
and
lot
I
of shame.
guess what? The men are doing it too.
And they are.
Oh yeah.
the
Well,
men.
yeah. Sure. Absolutely.
Right.
They don't talk about it. Yeah.
I
Right.
used to drop the one guy that I used to rip and run with off at the Roosevelt Inn to do weird feet stuff with guys in the freaking hotel. I'm like, ridiculous. I ain't doing that. Freaking nuts.
Come on, level.
Oh yeah. It's,
No,
all,
I was like,
Be honest, son.
I was like, I'll be sick.
all-
I had money.
it's part of the lifestyle, and it's very.
Right.
It's not
There's
spoken
something wrong,
about,
yeah.
I would see them get
causes
dropped off
trauma.
from the hospital down on the corner when I was doing outreach in their hospital gowns because they had no clothes. And these bird dogs, these guys be looking for it.
Yeah.
They'd sit there and they'd be on them like, boom, like, hey, come here, let me get you cleaned up there, straightened up. And they're putting them into prostitution, men. And they would sit
Oh,
there,
yeah.
and we got to.
I didn't forget about
To
you.
recognize
I know
them.
you're back there.
It's
We
a
see
thing.
the same guys. I know they were like they would prey on these guys, get
Yeah.
dropped off from the hospital, and they would just go off with them. We're like, there's nothing we could do.
Yeah, there's a lot of predatory
Yeah.
behavior.
There was one guy that would like every
human
once in a while rip and run
trafficking.
with me. He asked me to drop him off over the Roosevelt Inn,
Yeah.
and I'd pick him up a few hours later. He'd give me some of the money he made just
Yeah.
for driving him there.
They make money. Yeah.
And
Sure.
I was like, dude,
Good friend of mine, Jim, knew this guy in a wheelchair.
Stop. Stop.
But
Don't be
but
an
Lori-
ass.
His wife's probably out here. She's probably cracking up.
yeah. Well, Lori, you were bringing up a good point about the over the years the. People who are
Just an
going
old
into
joke between me and my
treatment.
buddy.
Another thing is women and alcohol now is a really big thing too
Yes.
in treatment centers, and I've noticed it myself in the last few years. There's a lot of women with alcohol.
Right. I think there's probably more women suffering from alcoholism than men.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I
I
I don't know.
wouldn't be surprised.
That's just a judgment call here, and I don't see that.
Yeah, but in the treatment centers, there's a lot of women with, and they tend
I could tell you, as far as opiate abuse, when I was doing outreach in Kensington, it was pretty much almost a dead even. I'd say just as many women
about
as men
50,
down
50.
there.
Yeah. When I've driven,
I mean,
down
maybe
there,
a
I've
couple
noticed
more
that,
men
yeah, I just think alcohol.
because
There's more women addicted to alcohol than men.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, but there's a lot of it's a thing, and you know, especially with wine, right about now, it's a big.
Yeah. It's okay to have a glass of wine every night. This is a glass of wine. When your glass of wine is a goblet filled to the top, that's a problem.
Sure, yeah, and you
That's
have
not a glass
and
of
you
wine
have
a night.
a few of them each night, every night for a long time.
Yeah.
That's
you know, Stacy says today you got to test your drugs. You know, that's a double-edged sword. Stacy just said drugs years ago, no one would be dying. The '90s, not today. You have to test your drugs. A lot of
Let's
people
get Mikey.
in harm reduction, yeah, with the fentanyl test strips and all.
He hates
I
them.
find that just helps people find the bad drugs because they want the drugs with fentanyl and down there with heroin and all. That's because they're addicted to the fentanyl. If that makes any sense, like
Yeah.
When I was still using it, it was so hard to find the fentanyl. You would get lucky enough to find someone that was able to get fentanyl patches.
Oh yeah, sure.
Now,
But it's like, everybody thinks like-
you can just ask for just that. Like you
Just
couldn't.
fentanyl.
It was
But like
hard
you
to find.
dip your strip there. Oh, I got fentanyl in it. I'm going to throw that away. It don't work like that.
No.
It just doesn't.
Because that's what we wanted it. People, I wanted it.
Right.
But it was hard to find.
That's-
You couldn't find it.
Like in my early days of doing outreach, I mean, they used to do what was called hot bags. The dealer would intentionally make very strong bags for you to fall out, overdose, whatever happened. They didn't really care because that would cause everybody to run to that product.
Run
Not-
to get that shit.
That wasn't a deterrent. Like, oh, don't get the one with the skull and this that with this stamp on it. They wanted that one. With the
They-
stamp.
yeah, they
that was
run
that
right-
was an advertising
Right to
ploy.
the fatal bag.
And
As sick as
why-
that sounded, they used to call them hot bags.
Well,
And
about
why?
What about the handicap stamp when the FBI put it out themselves
Oh,
to
wow.
see how far it traveled from place to place?
Yeah, it was
Those
a
were all
test.
hot-backs. That was a test that the FBI
And-
itself did,
Wow.
was to supply the handicap stamp into the area, and it went all over.
And this
They
is the
introduced it to
reason.
Philadelphia, went everywhere.
And this is the reason that happens. Because I'm smarter than that. They didn't know what they were doing. It
Right.
won't happen to
I mean,
me.
I'll use less. I
That-
know what I'm doing.
That if they didn't know what they were doing, I'm smarter than that. And guess what? They're not. And
That's
that
the
was
truth,
that
isn't
was the
Right,
freakiest
I'm
thing when we
different. I can
went
manage it. Yeah.
when we went through the what was the class that lived in Glendale?
David.
Day of Enlightenment.
The Day of Enlightenment. And Dana was running it at that time. He's the new Dana. And she was running
She
it.
had
and,
more hair than me.
and that was the
like
one
Sammy
thing she
Hagar of
she
Living
said. She asked the family members that were there that they have these hot bags and they take it and they die. And what do you think your loved one is doing? And we're like running away from it, like hello.
Yeah.
And
Well,
she's
people
like,
don't
no,
know.
they're
I mean,
running.
that's what you would
They're
assume.
running to it, and I'm like,
Looking at it with a healthy brain, that's what you would think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the takeaway here is that addiction, the brain is not healthy.
It's not.
The thinking process is incredibly distorted. The value system is destructive, right?
yes,
And-
Larry, test strips.
Freud.
And it's so it's good for if you know for family members of and loved ones of people in addiction. Or even early recovery for that matter, it's good to keep that in mind, that the brain is still very distorted. Even the patients that I work with, and they're great people, and they function well. They have good jobs, really good jobs too, and they have nice cars, nice houses, and they look good.
Hi,
but
Bob. Stop.
but yeah, and I'm just
They don't drive Priuses, okay? We know that.
Hey,
They got Lexus.
the Prius is one of the most reliable cars. Good on gas too. So
And the most
Stop!
expensive
He
Cadillac
drives a
ever.
Prius.
I just got some nice tinted windows on it too. I did, and rims. So, but yeah,
40.
yeah, yeah.
Priuses are real chick magnets.
But they're but they're your loved ones are still the brains is still very distorted, and and what seems logical to you is not logical to them, and vice versa, right? It's
Yeah.
good to keep that in mind.
And that's the biggest thing we always got to stress to like parents and loved ones. I mean, and I always use that same catchphrase: you're looking at it with a healthy,
healthy
brain.
brain.
That's why
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense to you.
Right.
And that's very helpful to a lot of people too. And they sit there when you put thing in parameters where they can wrap their head around and something makes sense to them. Because I mean, it's such chaos. Nothing seems to make sense to you in the beginning, as
Right.
the parent or a loved one.
Right.
I don't remember a lot of any of my addiction. It's almost
Really?
like I blocked it out, or
Yeah,
like,
well, that's a defense
or
mechanism.
like
in the brain.
I've literally forgotten just like so much
Like
of it.
somebody
or
with
just
very
black-
traumatic experiences, they could just
Yeah,
black
yeah,
it and
right.
block it
Literally,
out.
That's true,
Like, this
yeah,
just
it's a
blank
thing.
like period of my time. Like I remember
Wow.
like the street smart stuff. I remembered how to handle myself down there
Yeah.
properly. Like I
Yeah.
remember like other blips and stuff like that. But like
It's
there's
like
there's,
another lifetime.
there's
Like-
so much of it to where like I just like it was just years that I just have forgotten.
Right.
And it's just this black. It's
Yeah.
literally like it never existed.
And
That's-
is that what
Probably a
causes
good and a bad thing, double-edged sword.
exactly
Yeah.
because what happens is you forget where you were and how easily you became
You can go back.
addicted, and you're like, Oh well, it's been 12 years. I can do a little bit more. I can dabble a little bit. I can go for a day of high. Like it's been 12 years, and
Yeah.
That's the
It's not
slippery
good to
slope with
forget.
drinking.
and then with anything.
With anything, yeah.
With-
forgetting-
Anything, but people
forgetting
don't
the pain.
think of drinking and saying, well, alcohol was never my issue.
Oh, you can.
know?
It's easy to minimize alcohol because it's legal.
I
and
think
it's
it's like
part of our
12
culture.
years I've given up everything. I think I can
Yeah.
have a beer.
But it's
and-
wild. Like, every once in a while, like I'll like remember somewhere, like be driving past somewhere. I was like, oh my god, did I remember I'd be back there? Like just then it would hit you. Like, dude, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, yeah, that's
All the
interesting.
weird- yeah.
What you forget,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know if I just like purposely just block it out. Or
Cunning,
Possible.
baffling, and powerful.
At the
Yes.
same time, like I'm just
Yes.
completely
Yes.
terrified.
Yeah.
Like I said, like when I'm at cause I still go to like the people's parties, like Christmas parties or something. And people are drinking. I'm so paranoid. I don't even put my drink down just for the fear if I put
Pick
it on
up
the
the
table
wrong
and
cup
I pick
or
up
something.
the wrong one. I'm
Don't
terrified.
dose
Isn't
you.
that-
Yeah.
I hold it the whole time.
Makes
that's
sense.
You know what I
terrible.
mean?
Yeah.
Like
I don't
people,
blame
like
you.
I get like customers at my store will like come in and like, oh, like we made brownies or whatever for all you guys. I'm not eating any of that shit because I'm
Oh.
terrified. I really am. I'm terrified.
Brownie-
I'm in
brownies
the
is
music
fine.
retailer where all these stoners and shit. I'm terrified. We need a special brownie or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm good. Oh, wait, someone brought this cake and like, I'm good. I'm not gonna do it. Not a single thing.
It makes
Yeah.
sense.
Well,
Hey,
Yeah.
Richie, you have a question? So you forget about
Thanks,
a lot of this
Stace.
stuff, or how about this? Is it sometimes do you still have the memory, but the emotional intensity isn't there anymore?
Yeah, so I would say it's more of that. So like
More of that,
like,
okay.
probably in the last 3 years, I haven't had a single craving. I don't even have drug dreams anymore at all. I wouldn't say like I forgot where I came from, but all the like the really terrible times, and like just the longevity of like the long weeks at a time of like in the worst parts of my life. It's not. I guess you'd say it's not something that's like my first part of my memory. I have
Right.
to really think about it or
Okay.
be in that environment, and then I'm like, oh my god, that was terrible.
You get like a
Yeah, yeah.
flashback or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not something that's like always like on my mind.
not
Like, I have to
always,
like really
right.
think about it.
Makes
You know what I mean?
sense.
That's almost like
when
a
we're talking,
like a
like, the shadow-
PTSD almost.
Yeah,
Cause
yeah,
like because it
absolutely.
made me. I just remembered about that guy doing the weird foot shit. Like I haven't remembered that in years. I forgot all about that.
Yeah.
I forgot all about that weirdo doing that.
Yeah.
And then since I've been sitting here, I'm like, oh my god, in the Chamonix, and there's not a single good thing that happens there. That's probably why it's all torn apart. And it was terrible.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
been
yeah.
to so
That
many
place.
like
yeah.
IV parties there. It was ridiculous. Like it was just like crazy. Like that was a terrible
Yeah.
place to be. That and the Roosevelt Inn. Both.
Yeah, yeah, all along Route 1 there.
Yeah,
It's
Route
all-
1 is-
There's nothing going.
It's
There's nothing
terrible.
going on there.
Hey,
Yeah.
you know what, guys? I should probably get off the phone with you in case Larry or somebody wants to call in. He calls in every week, so.
Okay.
He was here all last week. He was on the show. He got it out of his system.
Yeah, that's why, yeah. He'll be back. He'll be back.
Yeah, but what I was saying is like, I
could
wouldn't say
never
it's, like,
get living
completely
hope
just,
out
like,
of here.
abolished, like, it hasn't existed.
Well,
It's
caller,
obviously
feel
there.
free to stick
Yeah.
around
It's
and
not
listen
like
to
it was
us.
in, I'd say, the first 2-3
I'm
years
actually watching
of me
on
being in
TV. I've never
recovery,
watched
and
it on
it's
TV
clean out
before.
there.
Really?
Talking
Constantly
on a,
every
no, I always
Yeah.
use
But it's
my
weird,
phone
like,
so I
I
can
really-
see the comments.
Do I
no
look
craving.
much
I don't
thinner?
have any urge. I do not ever want to go down
Hello,
there.
it's
You're not in the
Christian.
picture.
I know,
You
isn't
haven't
it
been in
great?
all night.
Yeah. You still remember.
All right,
your,
caller, we
I
love
remember
you.
the horror and all, but like, I
Yeah,
don't
you still
love
remember,
you
but
too.
it doesn't
Good night, buddy.
affect. It
Thanks
doesn't
for
bother
calling.
you.
Good night, guys.
You still live your
I'll
life.
be on.
Have a good night. Thanks for calling. It was
That's
good
all
to
right.
have you on the
Alright.
show.
Good friend of the show.
There you go.
But I know people that
Namastatic.
10
Not a
years
static,
clean,
Bob.
and it's like a constant bother on them still.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh yeah,
everyone's
sure.
different, but it's like literally like a constant bother.
Yeah, there are people who have the. Richie and I are having a discussion.
There's a sidebar
A
going
There's
sidebar
a
on.
major
discussion.
sidebar.
about the continued obsession and compulsion with drugs and substances, and it could last for years. But Richie's saying that he's at the point now where he remembers it, but it doesn't have that emotional intensity anymore. Right? It's kind of more kind of
It
faded
doesn't,
in
like, run
the.
my life. It doesn't.
Doesn't run his life. Yeah, yeah.
But it's still a trigger though. Like I'll go by that place and then he'll get memories back.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, there you can associate with things on. That's kind of common to PTSD. I mean, like
Very common.
you know, with battlefield type
Yeah,
stuff.
there'll
When
be
you get like a flashback and like
Yeah, there'll be like situations.
I didn't
like,
even think
wow,
of that.
I remember that terrible time. Now it's not a trigger to where I feel urge to use,
use.
or a craving,
Right.
or even I would say even at a negative factor, it's more of like a wow factor. As like, oh my god, dude, I remember Jesus, it was terrible back there.
yeah.
Like
Wow.
oh, like
Yeah.
the other day I was going down Byberry, And I was like, oh my god, I remember the Fox Chase train station right there. There's a whole den back there behind there no one even knows about.
Oh
And I'm
wow.
like, oh my god, I remember the times being back there. Like it was just like driving
Wow.
past. I'm like, I forgot all about that shithole back there.
Wow.
And it's still terrible.
Interesting.
Right.
It's just
Yeah.
weird stuff like that.
And we're got about 15 minutes left. If anybody wants to add a comment or call in, we are running a little over tonight because we started a little late. So, and Bob doesn't have a curfew tonight. So,
No curfew. Yes. I'm all yours. Let's
Got
do
a
it.
note from home.
But the testing
Trip
of
slip.
drugs, but the testing of drugs, I want to. You have to waste some of your drugs to test it. Or you know not doing that.
Right.
right,
That's a good
exactly.
And
point.
you're not
Yeah.
going to not use it because there's something in it. Like,
Right.
yeah, I'll throw that away. I'll get some other stuff.
Oh my god! You know how much bad dope I've bought over the years? If it's not even dope. You know it's soap or something. But you know what? I still blasted every bit of it up my freaking arm and still scraped it back.
Wow.
Knowing that it's JetBlue
Knowing
and
it.
it is not drugs or anything.
There you go. Yeah,
And
the
just in the hopes that
obsession and
maybe
compulsion.
there was just a little bit in it.
Yeah. Right.
Just knowing.
Yeah.
I knew that. But
And-
I had the money to go get more anyway. But still, I was like, well, it's here.
Yeah.
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 And
absolutely.
that's what happens to the brain. It just takes
Like
over
screw it,
your
like,
brain.
Sure.
And people, the family members just don't understand this, and it's so hard. It's so hard. Like, I really don't know my son's story, but I've been to Livingren, and we had many patients come in during our family group that would talk about their journey, and it's all the same. It's they're just all running for that, to be well, to feel well, to
Like,
get that moment of high, but be good afterwards. And some of them have done some really scary things to get high. So now they're not only are they now in recovery from their addiction, but now they're suffering because of the trauma that they've been through during their addiction. So, it's so important that when you are in that process of healing your brain, that you also look at the traumatic things you have been seeing and going through and doing to get that help for the mental part of it, because PTSD is a lot of people have that side effect from their drug use, and they never take care of that end of it, and that
absolutely.
relapse until you get that work done on yourself from all of the trauma that you've been through. You're just treating the addiction and not the mental part of it. Whether you have been diagnosed previously before use with mental issues or trauma. There's also people that were normies that, started the drug path and became addicted because they've had the addictive brain but had no trauma, now are suffering from addiction and the trauma from their use.
Yeah.
So it's really
why addiction is a disease of the brain, and it
Yes.
just manifests itself. And
night, Eric, night, Stace.
good night, everybody out there. That's we
Leaving
still got
us.
a lot of viewers.
Is Larry
which is
still?
great.
I gave Larry $25 to make a call, and
Now Larry's talking about test strips.
No, Larry has a curfew.
Larry's talking about test strips. Larry, when you were in the throes of your drinking, and you would go from bar to bar, if you had test strips, okay, see which bar poured heavier than the others by putting your test strip in, which bar would you be going to? The one that scored the highest on the test strip, no doubt. I mean, and that's the same thing.
Yeah.
That's my opinion with test strips as a part of harm reduction.
I was about to say that's definitely a definite.
I just thought of it.
It's definitely harm reduction testing.
Definitely.
Testing your drug is definitely a harm reduction. I guess, intervention or whatever you want to
And
call it.
I think it backfires. I mean, I mean, I know a lot of people are really big into harm prevention down there in the outreach world. I mean, with the test kits and the shoot up kits, you know, with the clean works and
Right.
and everything and all.
Happy meals. They call them happy meals.
Happy Meals.
Yeah.
That's the street slang. Oh, we got
We
another
have a
caller.
caller.
Hey, welcome, caller. How are you?
You gotta change that ringtone for it.
Great. I wouldn't need test strips to go to the bar. 'Cause the bigger the bigger the beer, the cheaper the price, and the more alcohol. That was the one for me. That was my testing.
Got him fired up.
Oh, yeah, the bang for your
Whoever
buck.
put less head on the beers.
Yes, yeah. Fill it up, but
cheapest
I've
and
no
high
head on it. I
volume.
want that thing filled right to the top of the glass. No foam.
Yeah.
Well, not when I was in the bar biz. You
Cheapest
had
and-
to, you didn't put another head on the beer. You'd be told about it.
Yeah,
Cheapest
that's
and
true.
high.
It was
Save on beer.
It was expected. Yeah,
Cheapest
yeah.
and high volume.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Larry, you were on the bottom shelf there, but at the end of it, right, Larry?
Yeah. Start at the bottom, work your way up to the bottom again.
Yep.
Up and down. Yeah. Let me try this. How much? No, give me the other stuff.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Larry, I was thinking how. Before I say something, do you have anything you want to say, Larry? Anything in particular, or are you just saying hello to us, checking in?
Let's check it in. Yeah, people talk about it's the mental thing that really leads to the sobriety thing. And that's what worked for me too. With the rehab and recovery house, but that was pretty much, a restricted thing. But if you want it, you see how much you want it when you're out on your own. And that's what I did. Once I left the recovery house, I was living by myself. How much did I want this? Meetings every day, and no car. So public transportation to get what I had to get, recovery, well, IOP, OP, parole. And
Yeah.
it's all that mental thing. It's how much I wanted it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Don't forget about that concert, okay? Not to,
Oh, forget about the concert you said.
Menudo.
yeah, Menudo, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna go see it. No, it was New Kids on the Block. We're gonna
Yeah.
go see.
Yeah, right, yeah.
There's a metal
Definitely.
show tomorrow night at the Broken Goblet.
Oh,
That's local.
Yeah.
So, did you ever get your money back on them Taylor Swift tickets, Larry? I know you were
Yeah,
a little
I
you
got
were a little
double,
steamed
but-
over that thing.
yeah, he was.
But bump.
Larry's a rock and roll guy to the end.
He's
He's
a rocker.
Alice Cooper, Ozzy Osbourne,
Yeah, always is the best
Marilyn
show.
Manson.
They're touring Miley Crew, Def Leppard, and Alice Cooper. They're going out on a tour.
We see Motley
That's
Motley
a great-
Crue. We see that. We see a lot of it. We used to go pretty frequently over to Camden over there and get them tickets on Groupon, sit in the lawn seats and see like three dynamic bands.
Yeah,
I mean, all
sure,
we
yeah.
see Earth, Wind and Fire,
Yeah,
Chicago,
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
along with we'd see
A lot of good
Def
stuff.
Leppard, Motley Crue,
I'll tell you.
Kiss twice.
Yep.
I mean, you can say
awesome.
what about Kiss?
I
They
love
are
Kiss.
showmen, man. I tell you.
I love Kiss.
They put on and you see the Kiss Army because you
Yeah.
can see it like skip the generation. You see Grandpa with the grandchildren, all the
Right,
kids.
yeah,
there.
yeah.
You don't see the kids, their kids though, because they kind of skip their generation. So the
Yeah.
grandparents are living vicariously through their
And they even dress the
grandchildren,
grandchildren
which I do
up.
myself.
They put on the elevator shoes.
Oh
and-
yeah.
Oh, God.
I love seeing it. I
Gene-
love seeing the old band,
Gene
man.
Gene Simmons platform shoes.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Hey, Larry, I regret not asking you something the other night when we were in group, and that is what did your loved ones, right, your family and your friends or coworkers, in order for you to get sober, right, what did they do that was helpful and what did they do that was not helpful?
Well, what was helpful maybe is like, they kept asking me, I'm like, I'm okay. Am I okay? I'm okay. But even that became unhelpful because I wasn't listening much to anybody. And by the time I really straightened out, I was by myself. And as it gradually came out of it, the people I work with asked me how I was doing, and maybe it was me. Maybe I didn't get the resentment of like, why are you asking me this? I'm struggling with I'm doing the best I can. Why do you got to keep asking me? It was like a double-edged sword, like you were saying before. It's how I took it, I guess.
Yeah, well,
But-
that's the problem. A lot of families and friends, we don't know what to say.
Yeah,
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's
that's a good point. Yeah.
it's very uncomfortable for everyone.
Yeah, but I don't know how to answer it either.
Right.
That
Right.
was it. I would look for, what do you really mean by that question? What do you really mean by that question? Maybe it's just what the question is, not what. There's no hidden agenda. You're asking me how I'm feeling. Maybe it's because they're asking me how I'm feeling.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Not trying to investigate.
Right.
And
Yeah.
at that time, you were probably extra defensive too because of where you were at, right?
Sure.
So you were, so you might have been reading into the question more when it might have been just an innocent question of care and concern, but you were, what do you mean by that, right?
Yeah.
Start
That didn't last
overanalyzing.
too long because I knew I was the alcoholic. I'm the one with the problem. And I had to think in my head that these people are asking me, how am I doing? And not try to dissect the damn thing. Just answer the question as it was asked to me. How am I doing? I'm doing okay. Getting a little bit better. Instead of doing the investigative reporting crap
Right.
that I tended to do in the beginning, but that was quite a while ago.
Right. And that's just so hard for us because when our loved ones come back from their treatment, it's so hard to really ask the questions that we've been asking them all their lives since they, started school. How was your day? What did you do today? We're not trying to say, oh, did you go out and party? No. It's just conversation. And then while you start to ask it, you're like, oh no, they'll probably think that I'm,
we start over analyzing everything too.
Right.
Like,
Oh,
and
yeah,
now you're on
eggshells.
eggshells. You
now
don't
the
know what the hell to
eggshells
say.
are all over the house.
You don't want to be
like-
Yeah.
construed.
And I still have not read that book yet. So I'm going to
okay.
get to it. But
No rush. No rush.
Eggshells all around, both sides.
yeah,
Believe me.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do I answer? How do I ask it?
Yeah.
It's just you just don't know.
Well, that's
There's
the
just be-
importance of
for me, it
education.
was- Go ahead.
No, that's the whole importance of education. To let people to understand what's going on and realize what questions they should and shouldn't ask, and not have to be so uncomfortable about everything. That's so awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I had to be just open and honest about it. Answer how I'm feeling. I tell you how I'm feeling.
right.
Yeah.
Stop, and I had to stop investigating and just answer the damn question already, would you?
Uh huh.
Yeah.
And
Right.
stop shining
Oh.
flashlights in their eyes.
I don't know if Larry had that, but
I know Richard did.
I put
Yeah,
strobe
Richard
lights
did.
in theirs.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, son. I didn't mean to turn that flashlight
Like
on.
somebody that's been away for a long time or something, even if they're in jail or whatever, and you run into them, like the conversation, hey, I haven't seen you for a while, like we can't say that,
Yeah,
Then you
yeah.
just pick up the conversation like
Yeah,
it was yesterday, and then it's like, it seems like you don't care.
Right.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, either way,
Yeah,
damned
it-
if you do, damned if you don't.
Right.
Yeah, that's. Hey, Larry, I have one more question for you. How much do you think, in your case, on your path to sobriety, how much of a role did negative consequences play on your path, Larry?
Oh, played a big role.
Yeah.
Played a big role. Like what would be the consequences if I relapse? That type of question you're asking?
Yeah, that and or even before that, Larry, when you that spark that made you get sober, one thing led to another. How even there too? How much did the negative consequences motivate you?
Motivated because, if I got, DUI a third time, it's probably jail time, and no family time, and even it's a little reminder now. when I speak, I still have my parole card, my last one, my all of them really, and all my urine tests for my OP. I even got one of the little.
Where do you store them, in the fridge?
And,
Sorry, Larry.
well, paper was yellow, but I don't know if
Little
that's
levity,
sorry. You know, so I have those reminders, and when I
For
speak,
sale.
I break them out. Well, I don't break out the testing. I show them my parole card and my inhaler for my breathalyzer that I have to have in my car.
Oh,
Just to
the
show
analog.
people, and I keep it as a reminder for me too.
Yeah,
You know, you want to play games, you know, it's supposed to be positive, everything is positive, I feel good, you know, things are working, but by the same token,
yeah,
I think I gotta be reminded of what these results are, what the negative things could be.
yeah,
And-
yeah.
Just, yeah,
Larry,
you know,
I promise this will be the last question. A related question: if your life had kept going really well and nice, let's say things were just still very easy for you, would you have kept drinking? If life was still easy and there were no consequences, would you have kept drinking?
well, you know, there's a few factors in there. Well, it was one big factor was a money factor because, you know, I don't know if things have been going well. I doubt very much. If I want to pee by myself and drink myself to death, yeah, things would be very well. But the biggest thing was, you know, I didn't have my pension yet, and I didn't start collecting my Social Security yet.
Mhm.
That happened after I went to rehab, and you know, started working on myself. And if it had been the other way around, if I had that money, oh, I know I could pay the bills, but I'd be drinking myself to death.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Right.
I would have
Right.
the house, I would have the bills paid, and no job. But like I said, you know, with the income I was having, wouldn't have mattered. Wouldn't have mattered. But, you know, pay the bills, no problem. Drink myself to death. You know, that's the problem.
I think what
But
Bob
that's
was
what
getting at
happened.
is,
That's the biggest change. You know, circumstances. You know, how things happen. You know, why do they happen? It's just, you know, it's just the luck of the draw that you know, the one to stop drinking came before the money was there to continue on a miserable life.
Okay.
like I said, I think what Bob was getting at is that without consequences, we have no reason to change our lifestyle.
Right. Yeah.
And like so many people make it so easy on their loved ones, you know, to avoid their consequences for whatever reason, they just prolongs their addiction. It goes on. I mean, you know, we're too busy tying up all their legal issues and paying their car payments so their car don't get repossessed or doing this and that because it puts too much stress on them or paying lawyers. There's no consequences, so it just goes on until something drastic happens. You know, what I mean? We all
right.
live by
That's the
consequences.
reality.
I mean,
Yeah.
why you get up for work all the time? So you don't lose your job. Why do you do the
Yeah.
speed limit? So you don't get a ticket. We all live by consequences. Consequences, what keeps us a civil society.
Sure.
In a sense, you
Absolutely.
know, we all live by consequences.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think because Larry, you know, we know each other. We've known each other a while now, and I know over time we've heard your negative consequences, right? And I just you know, and it just sounds like that was a big it was a big factor in your decision to get sober and stay sober, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
I needed a life again. Really, I was just totally screwed up.
Yeah,
Like they were saying, we get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and then
yeah,
you just hopefully can live long enough to get to that point. I mean, that's the sad
Yeah.
part. I mean, and do you make that decision yourself? I mean,
yeah, yeah, and I think equally important, Larry, is you also saw there were rewards as well. So in other words, you saw that there was a better life in sobriety, and I know that didn't come overnight, but little by little you saw a better life in sobriety, right? Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah. Took a couple of years for things to start opening up for me
Hmm.
mentally, you know, more than physically, because I was off the stuff for a couple of years. But you know, to get my brain back together, some kind of one piece, and decide what I'm going to do, you know, what I'm going to be in the rest of my life. It took a while. It took a lot of discipline, a lot of mental discipline for me to not cave for my urges and realize, this is the life I want.
Right.
I don't need that other life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I know you're running
All
out
right.
of time, so
All
I'm
right,
going to
Larry.
go.
Yeah, you're
And,
you have your curfew.
My curfew, yeah.
How's
Oh, I want to
Uncle?
hang you guys up.
Right, how's Uncle doing?
He's going to be in hospital for a couple more weeks. He's making slow progress, but
Yeah,
one day he has all his faculties, the next day he pretty much, he's out of it. But
yeah,
when you're 88 years old,
yep,
those things tend to happen.
yep, yeah. Well, we're saying prayers for him, and
Yeah,
hopefully
good, thank
he,
you.
hopefully
We're all
he
getting
gets
old. We're all
better.
getting old, Larry. I got to pee 3 times a night. I get up twice. I mean, it's the fact of getting old.
And Larry, let your uncle win every now and then in Pinocchio
Canasta.
too.
Canasta.
And Canasta, yeah.
Canasta.
Pokino. Remember
Yeah,
Pokino?
Pokino,
Anybody still
yeah.
play Pokino out there?
Yeah.
And you still buy a Pokino set.
Right. It was
These are-
a good,
these
good,
are
good
If he
questions.
wins, he wouldn't
good
know it
hybrid
anyway.
game.
But that's beside the point.
All
All right,
right,
people.
Larry.
Have a good night.
Good night,
Good
Larry.
night. See
next
you
week. I'll see you
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yep.
All
See
right,
you
buddy.
Yes, sir.
Wednesday.
Thanks for tuning in.
All
Thanks
right.
for calling.
Have a
All
good
right.
weekend, Larry.
Ta-ta.
All right, everybody. It is 11:10.
Thanks for all hanging in there, too. I can see we still got a lot of viewers out there.
Yes, and remember.
We still got like 20,000 people.
Yeah. But remember, we're working on holiday hours, so we may be late. So keep that in mind. I will post on my Living Hopeful page if we are running late or if we're going to cancel because we're running really late. So are you still at 8 o'clock next Friday? Okay. So hopefully we'll be, by 9:30,
23rd,
20
March 3rd.
Yeah.
And we'd like to again thank our sponsor, the Golden Corral.
Golden Corral has been very
Yes.
courteous and
They're
very patient. Very patient.
very patient,
with us.
and very generous too. They've,
And Sue, I've been meaning
slightly
to call you.
embarrassed.
I'm sorry, I
Yes, for our
haven't.
behavior.
But Blue Jeans was giving us a bit of an issue the last few times. So if you were trying to log in, I'm sorry, but I think we have it all worked out now. But it does time out. So if you come in late and nobody has logged in, then it times out.
Is that our friend Susan?
Yes.
Oh, hi, Susan.
So just wanted to put that out there because I've been trying to.
Why don't they just use Google Hangouts or whatever it is?
I don't know.
Good question.
It's
Everyone has Google now.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's the thing they use for our
It's free.
Wednesdays.
Please, no
But-
more formats. We're having a hard enough.
But okay, guys, it's
We'll save our
Friday.
viewership going over to YouTube here.
Yes. So thanks for coming and hanging out with us this late, and I hope we helped somebody today. Always available. Give us a call 267-737-8031. For those on the hotline, you know that number. Just give me a call. I'm here. I'm listening, and if you need help, that's where we'll be. So for
right.
everybody, have a great
Thank
Friday.
you all for tuning in, and thank you, Bob, for coming
Thank
and
you,
gracing
Bob.
us with
I always
your
enjoy it.
presence. And
I was a little nervous. Larry's a tough act to follow. I was a little nervous, but I
He
think
is
it
the
went. I
tough
think it
actor.
went well.
but it's always, I can tell you, is recovery works if you work it.
Yes. Peace
That's right.
out, everybody.
Good night. Have a Ramahama Kwanzaa.